They explained away all of John Martin's behavior with a psychologist. They said, well, John Martin, he didn't really want to do all those things, but he did those things because it's a result of a bad relationship, okay? And I said, well, why wouldn't they use the same psychologist to help explain Richie Incognito's behavior? If they were going to be fair about it, why didn't they do that? And they never did that. And, there was a couple of other places where they attacked me.
Have you spoken to anybody else from the Miami Dolphin organization? No. And
how about Richie Incognito?
Yes.
You still speak to him?
Oh, yes.
What are those conversations about?
I've done the best I can to try and help him stay in the league. Like I said, okay, and you guys have children as well as I do. If you put them in my room, if somebody puts either one of your sons in my room, I don't care what he does. You don't turn your back on your son when your son has a bad night or when your son's having a tough time. And I wouldn't turn my back on Richie. I didn't turn my back on John either. I reached out to John. John just would never return my phone call. So, I try to help Richie, and we spoke about a couple things that, Richie did afterwards and tried to talk him through some things, and just wish the best for that kid.
If you were coaching next year, when you're sitting in that room with players you coaching, are you doing anything differently?
Would I do anything differently? Yeah, there was a trust broken, okay? And to me, there's things that happen within all of our walls of our families and our homes, okay, that you don't talk about outside that home. There are some things that happen inside a house that you do not talk about outside that house. And when I sit in a football facility, head coaches, all these coaches, everybody talks about it's family, 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 okay? And I really believe that. And I really believe in those players, and I love those players. And you can go back to all the colleges I've coached at and even the players that we interview with the Dolphins. And they all say the same thing. Oh, yeah, love Turner. Turner was with us. He's a player's coach. And I did do those things. But like, would I do it a little differently? I probably would do it a little differently right now. But I would hope, that we could have kept it in-house.
Looking back, Jim, what did you do wrong? If you're saying what was in the Wells report was not an accurate depiction, if you could go back and do it again, what things do you say I should have done differently?
Well, these are two other points that happened to me. That they got me for pressuring a suicidal young man. They said they had this thing. They said to me, they did the initial interview, okay, and in the initial interview they asked me all the questions I figured they would ask me. Okay, there was nothing outside the lines. And then they came back, and all of a sudden, after practice one day, about a month later, they said, hey, there's a phone call for you, and the investigators want to ask you a couple more questions. Well, they got me on the phone, and they asked me about this Judas code. They said, tell us about this Judas code. And I said, what? I had no idea what Judas code was or what it meant. And they said, so they said I lied about that because I said I didn't know. And the fact of the matter is, there's no Judas code. Okay, I'm an Irish Catholic from Boston. Okay, so from the time I was a child, if you pinned your responsibility on somebody else and you said, oh no, it was his fault, we might call you Judas. Okay, and so what I would do during meetings is, if you say, if I said, hey, you did this wrong or something, and you said, well, Joe, it was Joe's fault. I said, who are you, Judas? I might say something like that. I can see myself saying something like that, but there was never a code. Okay, so I want to take that off the table. The other one was, okay, probably an error in judgment by me, okay? But I was trying to teach these guys. I gave them Christmas gifts, okay? And in the Christmas gifts, what I did was this. And again, this is a mature adult audience. These men are between the ages of 24 and 35. A lot of them have families, okay? So it's not like I'm in front of a group of high school kids or a group of college kids. Again, grown men in a grown men environment. Okay, and I'm in an offensive line room in the corner of an old dungy building in Davie, Florida. And it's Christmas time. They all buy me a Christmas gift. So I went out, and, you actually try and teach guys life lessons. And in high school and college, especially in college, you can really teach them a lot of life lessons. Well, as they get older, they're not going to listen to you as much. You have to be a little bit more creative about how you do it. And what I did with them was they gave me a gift, so I bought them all gifts. And it was about relationships. It was about how to deal with your significant other and how to hang on to your significant other. And I'm a United States Marine. I was a lieutenant in the Marine Corps. And one of the things that I learned in the Marine Corps was if you want to lock that message in, a lot of times if you do it with humor, it makes a difference and it makes it sink. And so what I did was I bought them all a CD from Michael Bublé. I said, listen, just put this in the CD player, keep your mouth shut, and you might have a shot. You think you got some culture, and so on. I bought them all a book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. I said, listen, this book can help you. I go, this book is written by women. It talks about how they think, how they want to communicate, and so on. And then I said, and if you don't listen to what I said, you're going to end up with this. And I held up the blow-up doll. Okay, as soon as they asked me about the blow-up doll, now when I held up the blow-up doll, of course the boys went through the roof. And when they went through the roof, I knew I had them. Now, did I think, is it an error in judgment by me? Probably is an error in judgment by me, okay? But at the time, considering the people that I was speaking to, okay, I didn't think it was an issue, and I didn't think it would ever be public knowledge. I thought it would stay within the family.
So to finish this up, do you think you'll ever work in the NFL again?
I think so. I know this. I'm a heck of a football coach who cares deeply for his players. And, put in the right situation. I have a desire to obviously coach in the NFL again. I'd coach in the NFL again. I'd coach in college again. To me, it wouldn't matter.
Jim Turner, thank you for coming up here and giving your side of the story. Again, we have reached out to the Dolphins. We have reached out to Ted Wells. If they have any concerns or questions or issues with any of the things that were discussed here, certainly this is a place where they will be free to state those. But